go. Lovely. Yes. Okay, so on three. Ready? 1, 2, 3. And big round of applause. Yeah! Woo!
Mastery. It was that moment. I was doing a treatment, and I looked up, like I had done a year before, at my mentor. She had 50 people around her watching her demonstrate the technique. And I had 50 people around me watching me demonstrate the technique. And not 1 ounce of me wanted to be over there watching her. I wanted to be fully present with the client on my table and the eager audience awaiting their turn. It had been nearly a year with nearly 1,000 treatments, all volunteer. I knew in that moment I had reached mastery. I was so elated. I was feeling so much bliss. My perception, it was so expanded. My awareness, my heart, it was so open. The event ended and I went home. And I was riding my state of bliss. My children, they could feel it. My 13-and-a-half-year-old son, he was pouring so much love. Mom, Mom, you're so beautiful. I love you. He was so connected to me. And it was really beautiful. And on day 2, Mom, 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 got a bit strange. I was wondering what was going on. And on day 3, I was kind of itching for my personal space. And my son, he wanted me to cook him some food, and I said, as we walked into the kitchen, I felt like a dog, and he was my tail. And I said, son, we're going to be cooking here, and I need you to stand over there because I'm going to be wielding knives and hot pans, and I don't want you to get hurt. And the look that he gave me, it was the look of unconditional love. But I didn't understand it. I questioned it. I looked at him and I said, what's that about? What are you looking to get out of me? There's something going on there. And, I have violated his trust. And trust, it gives us benefits, or it costs us taxes. And that day, I began to pay taxes as my son began to develop symptoms. First, the school called me. Your son, he's despondent. Next, the neighbor lady across the street. She came over. There's something wrong with your son. You've got to take him to the doctor. So thank you for sharing. I don't do doctors. I'm a natural therapist. Natural health. Power versus the force. And I was doing treatments. And every time the treatments were coming back to perfection. The integration of the feeling of perfection. The acceptance of all that is as it is. Okay. Perfection. However, the symptoms, they kept getting worse. He'd wake up in the middle of the night, come out with his cowboy hat on and wielding a pool cue and walking through the house like he was going to get the bad guy. My son, he was drifting away. You'd watch those sitcoms on TV, you know, the ones where the sister would taint the food and the brother wouldn't like it. So he began to think the food in the refrigerator was tainted, and he began to stop eating. I kept treating him. He kept coming back to perfection, the integration of the feeling of perfection, the acceptance of all that is as it is. I was thinking, how is this perfection? Divine intelligence, tell me, how is this perfection? And you know, we had a sacred contract going on then. Because I had a real aversion to medication on the planet, especially on that daily basis. There was another way. I was sure of it. We're divinely connected, and through this divine connection we could heal. However, the symptoms continued on. Saliva became foreign in his mouth, and we had to take him to the hospital. Eating less and less, despondent. It was very uncomfortable as a parent. However, I was so sure that he could heal. So we took him into the hospital. Blood, urine, CAT scan, 2 doctor's exams. And the doctor walked us out of the treatment room, and he said, "Your son, he's got acute paranoid schizophrenia. And you've got to take him to the psychologist and have him put on that heavy psychotropic medication for the rest of his life. And if you don't, you're not going to like it." So the next day, we went into the psychologist's office. And she proceeded to tell me that if I didn't put my son on that heavy psychotropic medication for the rest of his life, his symptoms would get bigger and they would get uglier, and I would surely regret my actions. So we walked out. We walked out of that doctor's office. We got that pack of pills. And we got in the car. And as I popped that pill out of the container, I began to cry. And my son, he reached over and he put his hand on my shoulder. He said, "Mom, it's going to be okay." In a completely clear, lucid way. It's going to be okay. As I gave him the pill. That week I was due to go off to another training with my mentor. And I got there, and I told her what was going on. And she said, "It's all perfect. You're going to get through this one. It's going to be perfect, and I'm going to get all through this one." She kept seeing me go in and out of acceptance. The training began, and there was this older lady. She sat up front. And something about this older lady. I felt so connected. I felt so loved. Have you ever had one of those times when you felt connected to somebody for no apparent reason? Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. So the training went on, and my mentor started to discuss how energy would get in the body, disease would be caused in the body by the way the energy was configuring itself. So I started to understand. It was fear, doubt, confusion in the second chakra, and an overactive third eye. Runs in my family, high perception. Okay, I feel great. I got it. I got the recipe. I really don't know what to do yet, but I got the recipe, and I feel good. And we go on and we do one of these exercises, the cosmic cocktail party. We're going from this very high, expanded state of consciousness, the collective unity, through the eternal Om of the monks. You know, Om. And then we'd go to the disco party. But you see, as we would go through this exercise, we'd go into that Om and we'd have an eye-to-eye communication only. And then we'd go to the disco party and we'd be like, hey, that's a really nice blouse. And we'd go back and forth. And when we were in that collective state, I got to the older lady and I held her hands. And I felt so amazing. My feet, they were in the core of the earth, like in the magma of the jacuzzi effect in that core. And I felt so tall, I was higher than any skyscraper. My voice, I could feel the resonance in the palm of my hand and in the soles of my feet, and my heart, it was wide open. And I got to the older lady, I was holding her hands, and she began to cry. She was bawling. I kept thinking to her, I love you. We're here together. We're going to get through this one. I got you. I love you. She just kept on bawling. Exercise ended. She went off to the bathroom. She came back and she says, I know what it was. I know what it was, why I was crying. It was that look. That look that you were giving me. It was the look of unconditional love. I couldn't see it in myself. Aha, the epiphany moment. It was going to be healed. It was going to be healed with a look. A look from his mother. And his mother in that state of acceptance. In that purity of love. So the event ended and I went home. My husband picked me up from the airport. My son was in the back seat of the car. He was so drugged up. They had increased the medication 3 times in that week. And he was just in a zombie state. And I turned around and I looked at my son in that back seat. And I thought to him, I'm your mother. And I love you. And I'll be with you forever. And I fully accept you. And we're going to get through this one. We got home. We dosed that medication down the same way they had increased it the week before. It's 10 years later. No more medication. No more drugs. No more incidents. My son was healed. He was healed by a look. By the state of being who I was, standing behind that look. Through that feeling of enoughness, that love, that acceptance, that connection. So I want to leave with you here today that we are all more than enough. We are of this divine perfection. Love is that healing power, that healing energy. Acceptance is that healing energy, that healing power. And acceptance and connection to each one of us, we can heal it all. Thank you.
Wow. All right, Sonia. Drink.
So
Feedback for yourself now.
what worked for me is I didn't cry. And I think the variance was there, the emotion was there, even though I didn't have to spread it out. I don't think I looked at my bullet points much, if at all. I think just having them there. I did at the end and that actually screwed me up, so that didn't work for me. Yeah, what worked for me is I know my story. I know, like, this was my life, and I'm really honored to share it, because there's huge value there. What didn't work for me is I don't know that I brought home the points for people as much as I could have. Right? There's more that I could add there, more practice. Yeah, I know that I've done a lot of work on that love and acceptance of my own self to bring it, and that's shifted things a lot. So what didn't work for me is the practice, how I was practicing, and kind of how it showed up was kind of a mix of not what it was and not what it's going to be. So that didn't quite work for me, that we're still in transition. We haven't like landed. What could be done differently is more practice. More practice, and you know, there were some more points in there probably that I would have liked to have said that didn't get said.
Okay, beautiful. You, are you complete with your feedback? Awesome, okay. So what worked for me was so much, honestly. Your presence on stage was very, very powerful. I've never seen you more powerful than you were just this moment.
Have to choke that one down.
Exactly. You'll get to the what didn't work for me in a second. But yeah, receive that one. There you go. Coughing it up.
Thank you.
Yeah. Your variance was fantastic. It was tremendous variance.
Okay.
You used pausing extremely effectively. Movement on the stage was more often than not, it was just perfect. It was just impeccable. There was a couple of moments where it felt like you were moving out of sync.
Okay.
You were very powerful still, and then the movement was a great variance to the stillness as well. Your vocal range was fantastic. The changing in the volume, the tones, and the story was compelling. Everyone was with you. We were all right there in your story with you, for sure, wanting to know about you, about your son, about all of it. You only had a few space words or filler words like so for the most part there were no verbal tics, so that really worked for me.
Okay.
Yeah. What didn't work for me was or is the fact that you are as hard on yourself as you are, because your own feedback, while accurate in some respects, you added tremendous value. The story was very well told. It landed for all of us. So being accepting of yourself even in this moment, of what you've just done, and not kind of spitting it up or throwing it up, actually digesting what an amazing job you just did. So
Thank you.
you may think that talk is half-baked, but it's not. And what could be done differently is, yes, you had time at the end. You had the better part of 2.5 minutes left. So if you did want to somehow close a few loops, although I think you closed the loops, but you didn't drive the through line as far as you could have driven it, let's say.
Okay.
You did go there to say how important acceptance, self-acceptance is, and that healing can be as instantaneous as that for ourselves, with ourselves, and even with the people that we love, that we've got that level of connection with. So there's more that you could say there without it becoming sort of a sermon-y kind of a thing. And it might even be possible just to look at where we can take this home for ourselves. What's the continuity for us? What's the imagine, what if statement or question, or imagine that.
Okay.
Those types of ending questions.
At the close.
Sure,
Okay.
exactly. Could
Got
give you
it.
that extra 30 seconds or so. So just let us consider how this, where does this sit for us?
Okay.
What's possible for us? The bullet points clearly work for you, whether you looked at them or not. They were there, and I was following you through them. So as you say, you know your story, So if you didn't have to look at it, great, but it's there just as a,
Crutch,
yeah, well, something that's there for you.
possible.
Absolutely. On a TED stage, you'll actually have the opportunity to have slides that you don't even have to operate, that someone from behind stage can operate those, you know, team member can operate those slides for you to lead you to the, to the end or what have you. But it was really well done. So again. Picture time.
And then we're all
First, Sonya, picture. Then we'll have Rodney and then lunch.
Oh, what about me?
Oh, sorry, you next?